What we're gonna do right here is go back. Way back into time.
We're getting to some acid music, or should I say some junglist. 23 till 6 in the morning.
Yeah, right from the beginning, you knew that there was something different going on there.
There was a real mystique about it.
That was a magic space.
So you're able to go in there and express yourself.
Go there, dance, be yourself.
23 Hop? It's influential.
Right away, you were kind of like in another dimension.
This was a new movement.
Oh, it was revolutionary.
Man, it was magical.
It's legendary, isn't it? 23 Hop.
In the beginning there was Jack, and Jack had a groove.
Toronto in the late 80s into the early and mid 90s was just full of spaces.
Or in the early days, there was something called Tasmanian Ballroom. It was in a big house.
And some of those were places like Cola.
We started going to parties called Cola, which was in a warehouse space where someone lived.
The house music scene started around then with Michael Holtzman, Tad Clark. He had the Cola parties, and his girlfriend too. They had big, huge warehouse parties.
I was living at River and Queen in a warehouse space out there. A friend of mine jumped in the subway station and killed herself. And I had sort of a tribute party to her, right? And a lot of people showed up.
These were all late night establishments where booze was sold. Certainly, there was a demand for it because 1 o'clock in the morning is when things got cut off. There was something special happening. You felt it, when you would go to one of these places.
The entrance would be through a back alley, and you'd only hear about it from word of mouth, and sometimes there might be like a password.
These bizarre warehouse, broken down spaces that had, barely a toilet.
It was a real basic kind of setup.
That blossomed into like the whole situation that I was totally out of control.
That sense of adventure in going to warehouse parties and hearing this music, communities of people coming together, gay, straight, and otherwise.
There'd be thugs from the suburbs, and we had like a drag queen doing guest list at the front door.
That whole era, it was so powerful that, even I sort of like look back and go, wow, whoa, shit, what really happened here, you know what I mean?
It was everything and everyone.
I mean, warehouse parties, you could play like techno and stuff like that, like all the early like warp stuff, like LFO and all that stuff. Dexter, so you'd hear it at a warehouse party.
And then in that day, I think the whole rave thing was really something new. It was just maybe a couple guys had heard about it, bought a few records, and were playing it, and and mixed with their house sets.
We're talking between say the 89, 90, 91, and 92. In those years, I think was the real birth of the rave culture here.
At the beginning, there was no trance, there was no jungle, there was no real categories.
There was no separation between the two. It was just all house music. It was techno house, garage house.
When I was 18, I was back in Scotland and just got really into the club scene there, going out dancing mainly to Rare Groove at the time. This was 1987, and the house scene was sort of bubbling.
Understood the music right from the get-go, realised what it was all about, came back to Canada and had to do something.
Oh my fucking God, why isn't this happening in Toronto? Why not?
When we first got here, I couldn't find it, we were looking in the more obvious places, couldn't find anywhere really.
Ecstasy was a pivotal, life-changing experience. And that rang true with everybody, especially me, John, and Anthony.
One of the reasons why Ecstasy started was to get this culture, dance culture, and like the e-culture happening in Toronto.
There was nothing going on in Toronto, nothing that we could get into anyway.
I was back here in 88 throwing some raves at the Tasmanian Ballroom. The first rave I threw, I think there were like 2 people. No one here really knew what it was all about.
So there wasn't really the word rave yet or techno. We just called it industrial dance.
And then suddenly one night I was walking outside 23 Hop and I was accosted by Anthony Donnelly, Danny Henry and John Angus, and they changed my life.
The first party we done was August 1991, which was at 318 Richmond Street.
318 Richmond used to be, or was at that point in time, 23 Hop.
It was like not even a real club yet, it was just like a warehouse.
It was an empty warehouse. There was 3 floors. The bottom floor was some sort of lithographic place, but the top 2 floors were empty the whole time we were there. And we rented the middle floor, but because we were so noisy and made such a big mess, no one ever rented the floor above us. And that allowed us unfettered access to it.
The owner wanted to change it up because there'd been a stabbing, or I'm not quite sure what it was, but there'd been some trouble in there, and he wanted to change it up, so he'd hired Mark Oliver to basically play techno and get the old house crowd out of there.
They all showed up and they all had Scottish accents, and I thought they were a football team. It turned out they were just blaggers. They're all from Brampton. There was probably about 24 of them. They had all the rave gear on, whistles, like jump around like lunatics, basically raving UK style. And I was like, finally, there's an actual crowd here.
The nights that we had there were unbelievable. Malik X, Dr. No, and Mark Oliver, Sean L.
I brought some techno tunes, some house tunes with me, and I convinced them to let me DJ.
Next thing you know, he's up, got his records, he's spinning, and that's the way it went from there.
They made that mistake, you know, that was their mistake.
The Exodus parties were the first of what turned into Toronto's rave scene.
We wanted to suss out the E's, then we could throw parties. We didn't want to throw parties without E's. That's not how we experienced it in Scotland. The fuck would we be doing that here for?
Chris Shepard came up to me one night and said, there's this thing happening at 318 Richmond Street, which is a space that he had a piece of. And he said, you ought to come down and check it out. This group called Exodus is doing these techno parties every Saturday night. So I came down there one Saturday night, and it was wonderful. It was amazing. That was really my first taste of the underground.
And our first 4 parties were the biggest fucking turnout in the hop ever.
Well, back then it was all about just togetherness.
We knew everybody within it because it was a relatively small scene.
It was about the music, it was about being with your friends, and it was about having a good time together.
The crowd was just insane. I mean, everyone kind of knew each other, so it was like a family feel.
And the crowd's very responsive, you know, you say put your hands in the air, they put your hands in the air. That's the way it should be, you know what I mean? You come out to rave and have a good time. My job's done. I'm happy, you know what I mean?
There was no attitude whatsoever. Everybody was your best friend. You could shake hands with anybody.
First room when you walked in on the right-hand side, usually played more of a down-tempo kind of thing. Then you went into the main room, and then that's where all the main action was. A lot of good DJs actually started playing at 23 Hop.
Man, I saw so many things at 23 Hop. I don't know if I could put it down to just one.
You show up and there were like 100 people in there dancing in the dark.
I made $75,000 in 1991, tax-free on ecstasy. We went to Ibiza, took a trip, just drug money. Nobody knew about ecstasy. $13 a pill we were paying for it and selling them for $35. That is, you do the math.
I'm not going to preach and say that drugs are bad. I'm not going to say that everybody should do drugs. I will say, however, what Jimmy Fritz says in his book, and that is, you will never really understand the music until you've heard it on E. It doesn't mean you have to do E every time you listen to it, but just that one time will sort of lift up that blind.
That was the early rave experience. You didn't need that many people.
It wasn't a lot of money at the time either. You were just, again, doing it because you wanted to get your name out there and to DJ, to play records.
Those parties weren't about making money. They weren't huge parties. Those parties were purely for the music. We want to play what we want to play, and the people who came to them were there for the same reason.
We were living pretty large, right?
Look in the distance and see a couple little lights. It'd be the turntable illumination things on the turntable. That would be it. It would otherwise be pitch black.
You saw it with the lights on, you're like, holy fuck, really?
I remember walking to the back of the club, it's just pitch black, and thinking, we're in these dark corners, you know what I mean?
It did have that real strong underground vibe to it.
Really dark. I don't even know if they had any lights.
I remember it being very dark. Yeah, very dark. And when you walk in from the van, remember you walk into the van?
But we decorated it by pouring a dump truck load of black pebble. Basically, it's the bottom of the fish tanks that you see that kids have. We're talking about a whole dump truck full of it.
So it kind of felt like you were walking on a little bit. When you stepped on it, literally felt like you could feel something was under your feet.
So as soon as you walked in, it kind of put you off balance. was kind of crazy.
The thing I didn't like about it is that the booth was situated away from the audience, so like you're really confined in like a little room. You know, you just had little peepholes to see what was going on.
And there was this little kind of a little hole that you had to peep out through at the crowd.
There was piss running down the fucking corridor and shit, but like, there was people just fucking giving it.
Mark also played house. He played harder edged progressive stuff, but he played stuff that with a bit more edge to it, faster.
Mark Oliver was still up and coming at 1990, but you know, in the next decade he became huge.
It was fantastic.
I played more of the acid house and techno. Dr. No and Malik X were, it wasn't called jungle at the time, it was more of a breakbeat. But they were known for the more raga style breakbeat. And Sean L was like more like the piano.
It's not about the people who promote it, it's not about the people who DJ it, it's about the people on the dance floor, the people turning up, that's what it's about. I have been to clubs like the Hacienda and the Club Underground in Liverpool that had the same formula, dark space, a lack of barriers, people just making it happen for themselves. That house music, cutting edge music, good DJs. Yeah, I mean, you know, like, yeah.
The drive in the UK was something very clear. They just run through many years of Thatcherism, many years of combat against labor, the abject goal of transferring wealth from people who had been building it over many, many years since the end of World War II to a point where they were transferring it back to what today I guess they coin as the 1%.
Yeah, I can put all kinds of adjectives, I can verbalize that, but stand in the middle of a room with people having their hands in the air and losing it and smiling at one another, I mean, to me that's what house music is.
Those people found themselves safe in the world of the rave community. They found themselves connected with people again. They found themselves in a place where they could collectively feel better than they do in their day-to-day lives.
You'd have warehouse ravers, people into house music, you know, it's just like a really eclectic mix of people.
You know, we all had our rave outfit. You know, you always recognize people because they had the same hat on they wore to the other parties, or, you know, they were in their striped pants or whatever it was. We generally stuck out in more really stupid looking clothes.
Before singularity was a term, we were kind of striving for that. Like, kind of striving for a oneness, kind of striving for people to get, like, over them fucking self for a couple hours. Leave your shit at the door kind of deal, right?
It was something that we loved doing, and I mean, if you love your job, I mean, that's got to be the best job you can possibly do. And we saw potential in it, we saw a future in it, and we saw something that could grow into something much bigger.
It happened really fast, everything happened really fast. So probably around about 92, everything went really commercial. Everyone wanted to be a raver, everyone wanted a production company. It became really, really commercial, and that's not what we were looking for. We actually tried to go that route, tried to make money at it. At the end of the day, it wasn't fun. No fun whatsoever.
Well, I'm from a phase generation, which is 2 years later. You know, you hear stories. What was important? You had to bring back the original gangsters on the scene. That's the way you look at it, right?
It's that place pretty well started like the techno parties.
It was the beginning of the rave scene, literally. I mean, that's where it sort of all started.
By that point, there were other companies that joined in, like Chemistry, Psychosis, Pleasure Force, Delirium, Nitrous,
That's what's so
Atlantis.
funny, because what raves became was this idea of like hundreds of thousands of people, you know, and some of the very early raves, you know, 100, if you're lucky, 200 people.
I have wicked friends to this day from that space.
I have no idea why it was called 23 Hop, by the way. That'd be interesting to find out. Mark Oliver might be able to tell you, I don't know. Or Shep if you nail him down. But then he'd tell you that he invented electricity, so.
In the 50s and the 60s, there was always that let's go to the hop type thing, and the hop being a dance bar. Most of those hops were non-alcoholic back then because they were for teenagers, and in America you really couldn't drink until you're 21 anyway.
We were
basically moving the city at that time, and we were taking the shots for everybody. I mean, we were being raided, we were being, taken downtown.
We thought the police were like really onto our shit, and so we were scared, and we bought little headsets, and I sat upstairs, and there was a little booze can elevator, and I sat upstairs with these Janet Jackson headphone sets on, and he'd be like, 2 people coming up to buy East.
Yeah, it was always a fun time. Nothing ever bad happened there.
People needed an outlet, and it was a safe outlet.
No one ever got murdered, no one ever died. Maybe there might have been a couple of slight ODs.
They did something nobody else had done before, so I know. And all those people that made money in the clubland past that point have them to thank.
And you look at what's happening now, like Digital Dreams, Deadmau5 and stuff like that. None of that would be happening if those guys didn't do that.
It was our own. We called it our own and made it our own and exploded in the city after that. So proud to be a part of that.
For me, it was so exciting to finally be a part of that.
Everybody knows 23 Hops as the venue, as one of the sole places where it started from.
I think apparently there was crazy nights, but I don't remember anything about them. And that's the great thing about memory, it's entirely convenient.
Moving into phase 2. Phase 3, 3 o'clock, touching down. This one's a big shout to my brother, the man called Mallet X. Hold tight, bro. Touching down nice and easy. Right now, come and join the breakbeat techno future. Forget all that commercial crap. Come and join the future. Come and join the Right about now, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking you back to last summer. Let's make some noise in the hop as it's slowly filling up. Big shout to the man called Captain B Mental. Pump up the noise. This is a rave. This is a rave. Come on, come on. Technicians tonight, myself, Dr. Tonight, we've got a man called Mark Oliver, man called Steve Techno Boy in the ass, Roughneck. We've got a man called Neville in the ass, Roughneck. Disco down in the ass. Hold tight. Roughneck.
I want to give like a big shout out to Malik X, whole booming sound system collective, Sean L, Mark Oliver, Dr. No, all the man them from back in the day and stuff like that. You guys are like my inspiration. Like if I hadn't read about on the Communicator website about them, I wouldn't be doing this now. Like they're like my biggest inspiration.